Hi vinyl community, John here. While I was at the library making my last video, got my room back, I spent some time looking at catching up basically with some of the videos that the VC had made, and one in particular struck me. I thought was quite interesting. It's Tim Allen answering some questions by someone called May Kay, whoever that is, not quite sure who that is, somehow connected with Robert Z. Anyway, I thought I'd have a bash at answering those questions, so here's my video response. I actually used to be in a band when I was a student. I was only a young lad, I suppose 17, 18, and I was in a band called New Cologne, named after a David Bowie instrumental on his, I think it's on the Low album, on the B-side. And we did sort of covers. It was just a student covers band, and it was rock, slightly punk, I guess. But what inspired me to learn to play, I used to play a bit of guitar, I don't do it now, I haven't done it for years, I was a big fan of Duran Duran, and I think this is my favourite Duran Duran album. This is probably somewhere up there on my top 5, next to Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin somewhere. And so they really inspired me to want to be a pop star, I guess. And so I learned guitar to be a little bit like Andy Taylor, I guess. And so that's the answer of that question. I got many vinyls from an early age, and I've shown some of them in previous videos. So I've picked some more to show. This is Blondie, Parallel Lines. I'm showing this because this was originally my brother's record, and he got this. It came out in '77, I think. He got this for a Christmas present, the same year that my dad bought for Christmas, like for the family, a Ferguson stereo, and it was one of these sort of flat models with a cassette deck on the side and a record player and a tuner bit in the front. And yeah, it was their like first family stereo, and this record got played the heck out of it that Christmas. And I always, even now, think of Christmas when I think about this album. It gives me that feeling of nostalgic memories of childhood Christmas. '84. David Bowie was perhaps my first major impression as an artist, and I remember when this came out, there's a track called Blue Jean, which I thought was brilliant. There was an excellent video to Blue Jean, sort of one of these sort of long, sort of extended video things, almost like a short film, I guess. And I got this, and it's quite different. It's quite different from his album that he had before, the Let's Dance album, which is quite, commercial in its way, and a lot of singles and things, whereas this was a bit darker. I think there's some connection with Iggy Pop on here. David Bowie does some just say some darker music on this, and there's a few sort of reggae tinged tracks too. So it was a little bit unusual for me at the time, but I've had it since then, and really enjoyed it. Played it on now and again. And another record to my eldest brother. One year for a birthday present, he asked me what I wanted, and I said I really wanted a Duran Duran record. And the new one out around about that time when he gave it to me was the Seven and the Ragged Tiger. I think he kind of resented buying it because it was a sort of pop record, and my oldest brother's about 15 years older than me. and he didn't really want to associate himself with that, so he gave me that. And then I think after that, for Christmas, he gave me, since he knew I was starting to get into music and collecting records, he gave me this Dire Straits. It's a double live album called Alchemy. Very few people have shown this on the vinyl community, surprisingly. It's a pretty intense record. And he gave it to me with the, I can't remember exactly how I'm paraphrasing him now, but he basically said something like, this is better than Duran Duran because at least they can play their instruments. Kind of really a bit unkind perhaps, but well, he certainly had a point. These guys really do play their instruments fantastically. Duran Duran do too, of course, but Mark Knopfler is an exceptional musician. I don't think you'll find anyone that will say he's not. And first one I'm going to show is a CD. This was never released on vinyl, I don't believe. So it's a Norwegian group called Brothers, and the album is called Two for the Price of One. I can't remember what it was that kind of made me buy this, but I'm really glad I did, because it's kind of rare as hen's teeth these days. I think it's been deleted, so I don't think you can't just go and buy it now unless you get a used copy. What it is basically is these two guys, two Norwegian guys, I think they're twins, black guys, and of course a band backing them as well. They've basically done a whole bunch of covers on this CD, but they do a lot of songs and they mix up the language. For instance, track 3 is Back in Black by AC/DC, and they mix up the lyrics a little bit to play on this idea that there's two of them, the two black guys. Hard to explain, you really got to hear it. I think there's a video of that particular track on YouTube, so I'll put a link down here somewhere if you want to go and check that out. And the whole album is good because it's not really rap, although they kind of rap the lyrics of the songs, but not in a kind of MTV way. And there's a lot of this disc jockey scratching record in it. It's an amazing mix. You've really got to hear it to believe it, and recommend that. Quite obscure, unusual. I've never met anyone else that has that, and most people have never even heard of it. But check it out. This is just a coincidence. It's another Norwegian band. Look at this. This is obscure. This must be a contender for the Spinal Tap Black album, Black and Black. Even the white bits are mouldy grey. It's what's described as being a garage rock. There's a band called Ghost Riders, and the album is called Baptism of Fire. They sing in English, but I don't know if anyone's ever heard of them outside. They're on RCA. I don't know if anyone else has heard of them before. I've never heard of them. I picked it up just because I like the cover. Quite, like I said, it's quite sort of Spinal Tap almost. That's quite obscure. And this one, I purchased this one recently when moving back to Europe from America. This is a British prog rock band called England. The album is called Garden Shed. It has a lot of high praise, this record, and yeah, they didn't sell many records. Came out in '77, so at the tail end of the prog era. I've read that people say that should this have came out before, it would have been a lot more popular and they would have sold a lot more records, but it's kind of going into the punk scene then. I didn't understand this, but this is on red vinyl. Quite a nice little thing to discover when I picked it up, come home with it. Recommend that. England, Garden Shed. It's their only album that they made. They've since released other material, but and this is the only proper record that they made. So that's quite obscure. Stick my neck out here. I'll list 5 bands or groups that I feel are sort of overrated. Hard to do that because, you know, you don't want to get lynched. Always going to offend somebody if you say you don't like a particular group or band or artist. So I'll do this very quickly. First one, and I have no apologies for this first one. Pet Shop Boys. I own none of their records. I had a 12-inch single which I passed on to Jürgen S. Nothing they do inspires me or interests me. I particularly don't like the way the guy sings. He has this kind of nasal whine, I would say. In fact, I wouldn't even say that he sings. He just kind of whines these lyrics through his nose, and I just don't find it very interesting at all. And I don't like the music that they make either. So that's one. I would say that they're well overrated. I'm surprised they even have a record contract for that matter. The next 4 are perhaps the ones that are going to get me into trouble, but I will just go through them quickly. I really do not like yet. I may come to like them in the future, but I haven't decided that I like them yet. I don't like the Velvet Underground. I've tried and tried and tried. Every time I put on their music, it doesn't go very long before I think to myself, why on earth am I listening to this? There's so much other stuff. Is Metallica. I get that Metallica are important to a lot of people. They just don't do it for me. Given the choice, I'd much rather listen to Megadeth. I think Megadeth do that particular style of music better. Van Morrison, I've said that. I've yet to discover what it is about Van Morrison that people enjoy so much, because I haven't found it yet. I'm sure that he's probably an artist that if I persevere I'll get there. I haven't got there yet. And my last one on that list is U2. I really enjoyed the Joshua Tree record when that came out. Anything else outside of that particular album though, I just don't see what the magic is. A lot of people regard them very highly. I'm not one of them. Okay, so on to the ones that I think are underrated. Okay, I haven't pulled all these out, but I'll start here. I will say one band that I think is underrated, and you don't see a lot of this on the VC, and that is Sparks. I think they're great. I think they're a great band. I wonder if a lot of people just assume that they're some sort of a novelty act. I can tell you that they're not. I think in many ways, in the same way that Rancid have kind of reinvented the sound of the Clash and the style of the Clash, I think if you've ever heard of Muse, a British band called Muse, I think in many ways they've reinvented the sound of Sparks. That's my view. And if these particular albums, these are just fantastic. Give them a listen. You know, if you think to yourself, it's a long lost Muse album, you'll probably enjoy it a lot more. So I think they're seriously underrated, because I think a lot of people think that they're a novelty act. Deep Purple are not an underrated band, but the material that they did with David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes doing the vocals, I think they're underrated. I don't know what mark that is, Mark 3 or 4, whatever it was, I don't know. This one is incredible. It's a really good album. So is Burn, for instance. David Coverdale brings something, and Glenn Hughes also brings something which wasn't there before, and they've got a real sort of funkiness. You can almost forget this is a rock album at all. It is so funky in places, and I think they do a fantastic job together. I'm surprised that they don't work together, or haven't worked together much since then, because I think Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale just make a lot of magic on this record. It Bites is another band that I think is hugely underrated. This is their first album called Big Lad in the Windmill. They perhaps were unfortunate enough to have had a hit single with this album, a track called Calling All the Heroes. And I think it made it hard for them then to be the kind of fully fledged sort of progressive rock band that they were, or that they are, still going today. Because I think people expected them to be something else other than what they were, with having hit singles and that. And I think I read somewhere Francis Dunnery saying, is the guitarist and lead singer of this album, this particular time, saying that people found them hard to pigeonhole. So that was their sort of dilemma. But if you give it a chance, and if you like prog, right, it's not sort of full on like Angler Gord or Anecdoton or something like that. It's much more like that sort of pop orientated, but there's definitely a lot of prog rock in here too, with sort of extended instrumental pieces, and they play around with time signatures and stuff like that. Certainly, I think personally this is a band that carried the prog flag at a time when prog was sort of non-existent, and that in itself I think are underrated. Is this band. This is an 80s pop band called the Dream Academy, and particularly this guy here, a guy called Nick Close, or Close, however you want to say it. He's a fantastic songwriter. This is their second album. They did 3 albums. So this was called, the Dream Academy, and this is called Remembrance Days. And they did a third one called A Different Kind of Weather. They're all really, really good records, and why they never kind of made it bigger than they did, I'll never understand. They, Nicolas Claus, for instance, I mean, he's so highly regarded by people like David Gilmour, for instance, who invited him to, write some material for the Division Bell album. He's recently done the music score for a film called About Time, which is really, really good. Phenomenal songwriter. Kate St. John, she played oboe on records by, for instance, Tears for Fears, lots of other pop bands. She even worked for Van Morrison, God knows why. And Gilbert Gabriel. He's kind of obscure. I know he makes music. I don't think he publishes it. So he made a whole video about this band, The Lilac Time. Check them out. Similar vein to the Dream Academy. The main singer-songwriter, Stephen Duffy, is highly underrated. You can go onto Amazon and read so many of the reviews, for instance, that people write about the Lilac Time and the albums that they make. And they get sort of 5-star reviews, and people gush on about how great they are and what a great songwriter Stephen Duffy is, and why, this sort of air of surprise, why aren't they more better known than they actually are. And okay, so that's my 5th one of that list. Turned out to be quite a lengthy video, okay. Alright, thanks very much. Good chance to show some fun records. Look out for my next video. Thanks. Bye.